I'm Evan, and I started a company called Evan Brooke Ethical Clothing a few years ago when some friends kind of inspired me to get going to help them with a project. I'm a military spouse, and I have 4 kids and 5 soon. And so the company is actually a pretty part-time thing. At certain times of the year it becomes more of a full-time gig, but a lot of my work can be done at home or locally or while the kids are at school, so it's very manageable. I would love to tell you the story. I've been sewing for fun since childhood for myself and my dolls, and then later my friends and my kids. I read a book called Lioness Arising a few years ago by Lisa Bevere, and she talks a lot about women helping women in the world and the problem of human trafficking and oppression and exploitation. And when she read a real powerful magazine article about it, she just lifted up a prayer and asked God if there's anything she can do about this problem, then show her what to do, and let her be a voice for women who need a louder voice. And I kind of said the same prayer right there. You know, it was in my heart, but I thought, what can a stay-at-home mom do about such a big problem in the world? But not coincidentally, a few months later, some friends of mine called kind of out of the blue. They were moving overseas to do something about human trafficking. They were starting a garment manufacturing business so that they could hire women who might be especially vulnerable to this problem or even have come out of this form of exploitation. And they needed a few clients to get the business started. And they knew I did some sewing at home, and they thought I could do this. And I thought, if they think I can do it, maybe I can do this. So we got going. It sure seemed like an answered prayer. So I took a trip out there to India and Nepal to visit and look for fabric and meet a few people, make some connections, figure out how this was all going to work. And we got going. So since then, I have started working more locally with Open Arms in Austin. They're downtown, and they are kind of an extension of the Multicultural Refugee Coalition. They hire Texas refugees to do sewing and production for several local designers, and I love working with them, and I love keeping things more local also. So now I sell products online and in a few stores around San Antonio and Austin. We're in San Antonio right now, and then also at different like community events and holiday markets, and also fair trade markets and local things where people really care about the cause and where things come from. All right, so I wish I could say I have been to design school or business school, but I did not. I studied something else in college. I guess I thought design would be kind of frivolous, but looking back, it probably would have been a great thing to do. But just like any creative outlet, it just comes out of me. I really love clothes and colors and shapes, and I love the simple stuff, and I love the wild, artsy, more abstract fashion. I love all of it and everything in between. So most of my learning has been with just reading books. I did a lot of it when I was younger, kind of experimenting. But I've read some books, some blogs. I've watched some YouTube videos for little tips. And a lot of my learning has just been good old guess and check. My mom kind of got me going with reading patterns and navigating a sewing machine when I was younger, probably junior high or high school. And just over the years, I got to give myself a little bit more education. I've done a lot of networking, and it's not something that it's not rocket science. Sewing is not rocket science, I tell a lot of people. And you can learn a lot from other people. A couple years ago, I was able to sit down with a professor just for a few hours and go over the Helen Joseph Armstrong book called Pattern Making for Fashion Design. And I learned how to read that and make patterns, and that really revolutionized things for me too. So even now, I would say my method is pretty basic. I might take an existing garment that I like and change a few things about it to make it mine. Often when I make a pattern from scratch, then I'll still compare it to something that I have that I know fits well or looks a certain way, or with my kids too, because I do a lot of children's clothing. I'll compare it to what fits them well and what looks appropriate for them, based on what I had in mind. So manufacturing is totally different than just home sewing. So I started this because my friends in Nepal needed a few people to work with just to kind of get them going. And but there is no way that I could have launched into production without their patience and confidence in me. And you know what, there's probably lots of other manufacturers out there like that would have the patience, but I don't think I would have been as confident just going into something like that right away. But it can be done. It really can. I learned a lot about the business side of things from another really good book by Kathleen Fasanella called The Entrepreneur's Guide to Sewn Product Manufacturing. It's another really big book out there. And it's been around probably for 20 years, but it's still full of such good advice. And she still has a blog and some videos and stuff online, so she's fun to follow. She talks about how to find a producer, how to treat that relationship, how not to act like a diva designer, how to time the market with your production. That's a real important part if you're wanting to get pre-orders, and also what information to include in your tech pack. Those were all very helpful. She goes over all of that in the book. It's very helpful. So real simply, a tech pack is it's your pattern and all your specifications for how you want this garment produced. So, you know, you throw in just as much detail. You probably want to have a sample and a real good pattern, and then every bit of information that you can think of. Kathleen Fasanella says that if there are any problems with your final product, it's the designer's fault, not the producer's fault. And I've really taken that to heart, and that's helped me produce a much better tech pack. That's a good question. There is so much to think about because the supply chain of the products that we buy here in America can be so vast, and they can just be all over the world. So over the past few years, I've thought a lot about the life cycle of garments that we purchase. For clothing, you could consider it starts with seeds, fields and farmers. It goes to mills, and then weaving for fabric, dyeing, wholesaling the fabric, and then cutting, sewing, quality control points, and then there's packing and shipping. And there's a lot of shipping in between a lot of those steps as well. So when you think about how far your products travel, it's just incredible. So there are dozens and dozens of people who have probably had their hands on the things that we buy. It's a little overwhelming to think about every single step in the process, but for sure the more local you can stay, the more control you have over what goes on, and the more knowledge that you're going to have, the more involved you can be, all those things. So I was able to visit last year with a Texas farmer, a cotton farmer, and he is now the manager of the Texas Organic Cotton Marketing Cooperative. So we sat down and talked about his passion for organic cotton production and why he feels it's being the best steward of Texas resources. And I have to say, as a native Texan myself, that his passion spreads, and I feel just as strongly about it in myself. finding people, also working with producers overseas, finding people that you trust in at least several steps of the supply chain really helps. People that you know care more about people than profits, and sometimes you have to rely on them as well. All right, so some of the humorous things, some of the most humorous stuff that I thought of right away was just traveling to India and Nepal. Traveling is hard, and I know people do it every day, but I don't, because I have 4 kids and I'm at home most of the time. But that was just a wild thing that I did. I felt like when we were first getting started, I knew it would be advantageous to get out there, look for fabric, build some connections with people, and it certainly was. But I can't believe I did that looking back, and you know, lots of funny things happened. But a friend was supposed to go with me, but her visa did not come back in time, so I went by myself. I wasn't expecting to do that. I was very, very nervous. And I'm an adult, but I was still nervous, especially to tell my mom that I'm gonna do this by myself. I need to do this, to just fly to the other side of the earth. But it was fine. God is with me. I knew I was gonna be fine. I had friends here and there, and you know, at each airport, it was fine. But then traveling around New Delhi and Kathmandu is crazy as well. They have traffic lights in India, but they don't all work and nobody seems to look at them. They have lanes, but you know, nobody looks at that either. The taxi drivers pretty much all just go and honk constantly. And my friend says that they're just being friendly. They're saying, hello, I'm here, you know, look out. But it doesn't feel like that when, you know, you come from this culture and you're going over there. It just seems like everybody is crowded together and they're all honking at each other. Thankfully, we weren't hit. You know, people, they don't hit each other very often. But it sure felt like we were going to. So then in Kathmandu, the best way to get around is on a motorbike because it's, you know, it's smaller, easy to maneuver around. Some of our friends out there will put their whole family of 5 on one motorbike to take the kids to school. So those were just some of the funny moments. But I had just some of the heartwarming stuff that happens over here. I would say one of the most heartwarming aspects of my work is when you're able to share your story or just your lifestyle with other people, and they're so inspired that they easily maybe change something about how they shop or how they dress or something in their life. So I talk a lot about buying less and buying thoughtfully, and so that I can support fair trade and leave a small environmental footprint. There are so many easy ways to do this, like thrifting, clothing swaps, all kinds of, just being a little bit more careful about what you buy. And a few, you know, most of your friends, they just need a few inspiring ideas and they need to see it happening. And it's, you know, it's easy to make a few changes that make a big impact, I think, in the world. Women are constantly talking about their clothing and accessories. We're always commenting on others, so it's a real easy conversation starter to talk about what you're wearing, where you got it, you know, the story behind it. That's always really fun. I was just telling Leah a minute ago that big fashion business seems to have a way of doing things, but a lot of us smaller designers, stuff changes all the time, and there's a big movement of fair trade and local buying and, you know, caring about where things come from. So there's a lot of possibility in that. So for sure, those 2 books that I have read, the Kathleen Fasanella and the Helen Joseph Armstrong, those are excellent books to get you going on just sewing and pattern making and then the business side of things. my next bit of advice would be networking. Make a lot of friends, especially locally, of people that are doing the same or even just loosely similar things as you. Get to be good friends with them, interview them. People love to talk about themselves, and you can really take advantage of that. I've called people kind of out of the blue or done little interviews like this, just over coffee, and everybody is just so receptive to, let's all work together. Let me share my story. Let me talk about what I do and, what I've learned. People love that. And so that's really an easy thing to do. It does take a little bit of boldness to approach somebody and, ask to dig into their lives, but people like that. People do. Another bit of advice from my brother, who used to record music for a lot of his friends, was, and I think he said this probably about one person in particular, I'm not sure, but he said, you're going to have to write a lot of bad songs before you write some good ones. And I'd say it's the same with fashion. You're going to make a lot of weird stuff and awkward things, but just do it and wear it and learn from it. I've made plenty of things that I feel a little bit embarrassed about, but if you just get it out there, you're going to make a lot of progress a lot faster. Our time on earth is so limited, so just get going, make stuff, wear it, and keep learning. Alright, so I brought a couple of things. This is a very simple wrap dress that Purna produced for me. They're my friends in Nepal. So we just I had them, this was I think my very first production run. And we kind of picked fabric over texting. I picked some of it while I was out there, and then some of it we had to use WhatsApp and just kind of pick when they were fabric shopping in their time zone. So I had to wake up in the middle of the night and and catch them while they were shopping sometimes. That was a lot of fun. It's just a real simple cotton wrap dress for little girls. And then here we have a Texas organic cotton shirt. We call them Texas Grown and Sewn. And this is what Open Arms did for me. They did a run of organic cotton t-shirts. The cotton's from Texas and the production's in Texas, because we have so many resources here that we can use. And I feel really, really good about the supply chain of that one. People love that it's from here. And then the skirt was actually another little project I did. I didn't mention it earlier, but I was part of a little, there's a refugee group in San Antonio, and they have like a Friday morning sewing class. And I crashed it for a few weeks, and we just did a little skirt project with them. Just an elastic waist, and those are all like upcycled and repurposed fabrics that either I had laying around or that I found at thrift stores. So that was a lot of fun too. You can make some simple things that way. Thank you to the Modest Fashion Guild for having me. It's an honor to share my story with people, and please reach out. I'm still a very small one-woman operation, and I love sitting down with people, and I love feedback, and as I grow I'm going to need more help, and it's good. It's just really great meeting people and supporting other women who are doing something real similar.